Hello and welcome to the AdTech Heroes podcast. In today's episode, we are going to talk about privacy, and I'm delighted to be joined by Shad Alter. Shad is the head of Mobile and Programmatic User Acquisition at eToro and is based out of Tel Aviv. He has over 10 years' experience in the digital industry, working at companies such as Adorica, Supersonic, and IronSource. Hello, Shad. How's it going?
Great, Dal. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you today as a guest. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today on privacy. It's obviously super hot topic right now, and it has been, I think, for some time. So I think before we get into the conversation of privacy, it'd be great to kickstart with understanding a little bit more about your career. So yeah, tell me more about it.
Sure. So I can start from the top, I guess. As you said, I'm currently the head of programmatic at eToro. So I'm in charge of basically overseeing our programmatic media buying teams across multiple DSPs. And actually, before that, I'm originally from Cape Town, South Africa, and moved to Israel about 12 years ago. So right in the boom of the AdTech space that just started really growing at that time. There was a lot of ad networks popping up, trying to buy and sell traffic and, rebroker a lot of campaigns. So I was involved in many different startups around media buying and the teams exploring those strategies. But more interesting, I found myself actually at a company called Supersonic Ads, who were kind of the first SDK in-app based incentivized traffic mediator. So all those kind of, reach a specific level and you get a reward, or watch this video and you get a reward. So I was actually involved with them trying to build their business, and eventually they were actually bought out by IronSource, who are actually a kind of a behemoth in the industry today. So yeah, as you said, been around in this industry from the beginning until how things are looking today.
And have you seen that change and that shift over those years of priority for AdTech? You mentioned kind of the app space, user acquisition space has a lot changed in the years that you've been in the industry. And like you said, in that kind of hub that is Tel Aviv.
Oh, yeah, of course. I think today the user is in the centerfold now. Before, from the beginning, it was kind of like the Wild West. So we had, I'm sure you can remember, the user browsing experience was a nightmare. You had ads popping up over videos or pop-unders, and we're just kind of getting spam from all over the place. And even advertisers were unsure how effective online advertising was. So things have definitely changed in that way, that the user is in the center. It's, what is good for the user? How can we improve his online browsing experience? How can we show more relevant ads to the user? And obviously to, equal much better, lower CPAs for a lot of the advertisers and more revenue for the publishers.
And then would you say your role has been different across the different companies you've worked for over the years? Have you always sat in that kind of programmatic remit or commercial remit? Or how has that differed over the years? So
I've had the actual great privilege to work within ad network, so being kind of middleman between the advertisers and the websites and apps. Also, from the get-go, I think I was using a lot of the early platforms such as Right Media from Yahoo and AppNexus when they first started. So I've been kind of exposed to how those platforms have evolved during this time. But definitely the shift to the client side, where I am now at eToro, it's a kind of a major shift in focus, where you are the client, you have amazing data that you can work with, and just about understanding, utilizing the data instead of just being the middleman trying to kind of match the best medium for your ad. So yeah, definitely being exposed to all that.
And for those of the audience that don't know who eToro are, can you please explain what they do?
Sure. So eToro is the world's leading social investment platform. So you can think about Twitter, Facebook for investing. Our main goal is to open up the capital markets to everyone. So ranging from traders who actually want to come and use our platform to trade, and to people who don't know how to trade at all, but want to be exposed. So we have a lot of tools around helping the amateur investor having his first step into the markets by offering products such as Copy Trader, where you can actually copy traders which do have a lot of experience, and you can actually see what their portfolio is and what they do can affect your portfolio. And we have our main kind of bread and butter with it, which is our social community. So we have around 20 million registered users around the world that you can just speak with and get their kind of sentiment around the markets at this time. So you feel kind of very comfortable and very supported when, having this first step into the world of investing.
And would you say that's your USP within the market? Because from my understanding, and I don't know a lot about this industry, but from the outside, there are tons of competitors, right? So would you say the social element to eToro is what separates you, or are there other elements that makes you different to the others in the market?
So actually, just recently, we had a lot of competitors sprouting up. For example, Robinhood in the US, Revolut in the UK, but we've been here for about 14 years already. So we have, our first mover advantage. But as you said, definitely our main USP is our social element. So, besides for the ease of use and the many different instruments from stocks to crypto, which we offer our users, the user can actually come in and see in a very easy way and speak to traders and speak to other people in your country, in other countries, and get their opinion on what's going on. So it's that's how we see our main USP.
And would you say in the last couple of years it's really grown in terms of the interest from amateur investors? And again, I kind of think of myself, the early lockdown days where, you weren't going out, you weren't eating out or drinking out, you were at home more often. You would literally just see an ad and, download an app and start investing, albeit very small amounts because you've got no clue what you're doing. But did you see that interest from amateur investors grow in the last couple of years, and is it continued to grow even as we come out of lockdown and people are going back to work and spending time outdoors?
So yes, generally speaking, there has been this rising tide of the retail investor and feeling more empowered to have control over your money. So instead of giving your money over to these big banks or big brokers, investing brokers that you're not sure exactly what they're doing with your money, we kind of seeing this whole movement of people wanting to have control of how they invest, more transparency in the fees that they pay, and just ultimately wanting to take part in the market. So, we have people that are actually everyday users of fashion items or utensils or whatever, and you can actually be a part of the growth of the actual product that you use. So this was definitely amplified 100-fold during COVID, as you mentioned. We had a lot of kind of saw our biggest surge in numbers during that time for many reasons. Mainly, as you said, there was a lot of people at home searching for additional income. The stimulus checks that people received, so they had a lot of more disposable income. They were spending less during lockdown, so we saw a huge surge in numbers, and it was, one of our best times, but also one of our most tricky times because it was, of course, COVID, and it was a very sensitive time around not just people's livelihood but people's lives. But we have seen a massive growth, kind of, I wouldn't say peaking, but starting to kind of to peak around last year. And, it's very correlated with the markets. The markets had a really great run last year, and obviously this year is kind of having a bit of retracement, which is always healthy. But we're very kind of in tune with the markets.
Amazing. So yes, like I mentioned, today's topic that we're talking about today is privacy, and like I said, it's a super hot topic at the moment. There's lots of things happening within the market, and all the different players within the market are all kind of having their point of view on it. But what's your opinion on what's happening in the industry with privacy at this minute?
So yeah, you definitely said that correctly. It's a very hot topic, especially in the last couple of years. There've been some massive changes in the whole industry in both from all perspectives. But I think if we go back a few years to understand, what caused all these changes and why they were happening, I think, as I said earlier, the beginning was kind of, a crazy time. There wasn't a lot of focus on the user and on data and on personalization at all. It was just kind of show my ads to everyone and hope for the best. And I think it was a very terrible experience for the user. But later on, a lot of mediums started sharing data, user data and user behavior with advertisers. So the advertiser started to get put into a situation where, okay, I have all this interesting information, some sensitive data, and I can actually use this to, restructure my strategy around who do I want to see my ad and who don't want to see my ad. So it started to get a bit better in that sense. But what happened was there was a lot of data breaches, stolen identity, fraud, etc. And the user started to understand, okay, wait a minute, what actually am I sharing with the platforms? What do people know about me and how at risk am I? And I think at that point, the bodies at whole, like the IAB, came in and started saying, okay, wait a minute, we have to have some structure here. We have to put in some mechanisms to let the user know what they're actually sharing with the websites or with the apps. And that's when we saw GDPR come in and the cookie consent banner, which I guess was a major change for the better. But still, the user didn't really understand what they were consenting to. They kind of just want to get that banner away so they can continue on their path. So it was kind of a step in the right direction, but not enough. And I think kind of the major tipping point was last year, I think, when Apple did their update on their iOS 14.5 and actually said, we're putting a stop to sending personalized, identifiable information to the advertisers, and that's it. That's no questions asked. If the user wants to send his information, they can. But from the default, in default, we are not sending these IDs, and this caused a major pain for a lot of companies. But I think this is where it's going. I think Google's been speaking about a cookieless environment, so I think that's where the industry is going. But again, it's a lot of pain points that will arise from this.
I just want to touch on a point you just made now, and I totally agree. Users seeing the pop-up banner, just saying accept cookies, and you just want to quickly consume the content that's after that kind of block, right? So, is that something that you think that will change or can change, or is it how would you develop that element of that pop-up coming up and just clicking accept to read the content that's behind it?
So I think there has been a lot of changes in the way that the banner is shown. There's a lot of ways that it can be shown with a lot of different information. A lot of advertisers or publishers are actually showing all the data that you're exposed to. So from not just a marketing perspective, but tracking and the passwords, etc. So the more transparent you can be and the more upfront you can be at the beginning with the user is much better. And I think what I researched before this podcast was around, I think it was about 55% of users actually opt in. So users there are still a big handful that are just opting out. We're not sure why. We can assume that they actually don't want to give over the information. But that 45% is something that we as marketeers need to deal with, and how we approach the data that's being shared.
Definitely, and I think the word here is control, isn't it? Where the users are getting that control back on their side, rather than kind of having that taken away from them. And there was a recent article that I read on the Washington Post, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and it mentioned that now Google is also letting users block ads from certain things related to dating, pregnancy, parenting, etc. I think Facebook's been doing it for some time, but now Google's starting to enable that and give that control back to the users. So I think, that's definitely should be a good point for the consumer, right?
Oh, definitely. I think that privacy and personalization can coexist. I think where the browsing environment is safe and relevant for the user, it'll just make them much more at ease with what they want to and what they can share. I think users do appreciate getting shown relevant ads. Of course, we can't deny that, but it does come with some sort of cost. But as I'm sure the months and years go by, the cost will become much less, where we will be using non-identifiable metrics that we can actually build, like a lot of attribution companies can build algorithms and probabilistic methods around attribution, instead of actually using real hard or data of the user.
So would you say brands are struggling now because they don't have these data points and they're kind of rushing around trying to find another solution? In your opinion, then, what other solutions are there out there readily available now, and definitely for the future? Do you think certain new things will come about?
So definitely there's been a loss in conversion data. So if you think about it, all the users that opt out, how do we actually attribute these users to the medium that brought them? So there's a lot of transparency that was just gone, which meant that brands and advertisers had to rely on MMPs for their attribution. So, for example, around in-app traffic, so a lot of our attribution is based on AppsFlyer and how they kind of use their probabilistic modeling, as they call it, to say, okay, we think probably this user converted, so we'll kind of attribute the source that brought this user. But again, it's not 100%, and a lot of people, a lot of smaller agencies that couldn't actually survive these kind of loss in conversion data, closed shop. So there's a big reliance on first-party data now, and reliance on third parties to help with attribution. But I think that more people or more advertisers and brands are moving towards contextual advertising. So we won't know what the user has done in the past, but based on the content of the article or the web page that they are browsing, we can understand what they like and what they don't like. So kind of a different way to target users without really knowing that. So that's kind of been a big increase in contextual advertising. We've found that's worked.
And how has contextual worked for eToro then? Is it serving ads in specific placements? What does contextual mean to eToro? Is it the actual editorial content or in-app environment, or even things like time of the day? Positioning an ad at a right time could also be seen as contextual, right? So it'd be good to understand that.
So definitely within the content of the web page, for example. So instead of relying on data from our DSPs to say, okay, show me users with financial interests, for example, and this can also be not 100% accurate because of the consent not being given. So we would say, okay, so show my ad within news articles speaking about stocks, crypto, the stock market, specific stocks, etc. So we have a kind of understanding if the users are reading these articles, so they must have an interest. So that's a lot of it is also intertwining with native advertising, with the likes of Taboola, for example, that we have a lot of places contextually where we can show specific ads based on the view of the article, the theme of the article, etc. So it's been a way for us to connect to users on a more like a non-direct way.
Definitely. And you touched on transparency and measurement. Would you therefore say privacy and an increase of privacy impacts not only lower funnel campaigns but also upper funnel? Would you say it's across the board, or would you say it's kind of more so affecting the hard like sales or CPA type of campaigns that you're running?
So I think it's across the board. We use a kind of a multi-funnel approach to getting our users. From the beginning, just to understand, okay, this user has clicked our ad, has come to our website or blog post, etc. They have an interest. How can we push them further along the funnel to eventually convert? So, especially in our industry, in the financial and investment industry, we have a very a lot of sensitive, situations where we don't want to force or push the user to join and to convert. So we'd rather push them along a lot of different funnels to kind of educate them about the markets, about investing, about eToro, about all our different products. So if we are losing the data, of the user, it's difficult for us to kind of push them along the funnels that we know work for us. At the beginning, we kind of, if I think about how we do things, we definitely, we GDPR compliant, etc. And once the user has seen our ad and they actually consented, so we really give them a great experience and a great journey, the conversion journey. And the ones that that we find it hard to kind of get them back, or using some other type of retargeting mechanisms that we just can't do. So we find ourselves kind of not just wasting money maybe, but showing the ads a few times to users that actually didn't want to see it again. So it's difficult.
And at eToro then, so you've obviously had a few strategies. You probably had to change strategies with less and less cookies being made available to use as a data pool. How have you then utilized your first party data or other ways in your strategy? How have you done that?
So the way we work with most of our DSPs is that we integrate a lot of our CRM data inside. So within the CRM data, we can say these users are the ones that are depositing the most money, or the most active, or the ones that are not yet deposited. And we kind of segment our users in many, many different ways, in different clusters. And we use kind of lookalike modeling. So lookalike modeling across Facebook is a very powerful tool with that. The DSPs are a very powerful tool. So, we don't want to be in a situation, we never kind of started a kind of promotion or whatever very broadly. We don't want to show our ads to everyone. We want to show our ads to users that we know will have a high possibility of joining eToro and converting. Especially in the niche in this niche of investing in financial verticals. So there's a lot of money that can be wasted. So we need our first party data. We need the third party data. We need to combine everything to understand, okay, these are the type of users that we want. We've kind of wasted, I won't say wasted, but there's a lot of money that gets spent on A/B testing and trying to find the right users, until we get to a situation where, okay, let's use our first party data, let's build these segments, and let's kind of copy them, going out and getting new users.
And how important has privacy been at a company level for eToro? And the reason I ask is, does it just sit within the marketing team? Does it just sit within the programmatic team or the data team? Are there more departments within eToro that are talking about it, making sure it's front of mind? And the reason I ask is because I can imagine certain industries and certain companies probably don't have it as high up on their agenda.
So for better or for worse, because we are a financial company, so there's a lot of layers of privacy and protection that we have to kind of abide by. So starting from the actual regulation of the specific country. So we want to market our products in the UK, so we need a license. And obviously we have licenses across all the major regions. But then once you have your license, there's not a lot what we can and cannot market to the user. So in the UK, there's a lot of, for example, kind of pushing back on crypto for the retail user. So we're working very closely with the regulators there. But besides that, we have another layer within, for example, Facebook and the DSPs. So a lot of them don't allow specific financial products. So going down the line, we have a lot of protection that we need to get past. But we have a massive compliance team. So before any ad actually goes out, it has to be looked at. Given permission to use these words. So we are very, very scrutinized, not just by our own compliance team, but the regulators outside about how we say, what we do with our products. And once the user actually signs up and has to, by default, he has to give us a lot of information, ranging from their income to their social security numbers, etc. So there's a lot of trust that we need to give over to the users that say, listen, you can trust us. We don't do anything with your data that's not, that won't kind of get breached or anything like that. So we have a lot of layers around how we work with privacy on the data.
Yeah, I think that's important. You mentioned trust there. I think trust is super important when you are ultimately giving up your money, for an investment. You need to have the trust of where it's going to, right? You wouldn't just give your money to anyone out there. So, I definitely think trust is again an important word around privacy. When it came to early 2020, lockdown, COVID, you mentioned you did see an increase in demand from users and new users. How did you handle that whole kind of onboarding new clients, new customer base, and then also the volatility in markets? Because there were, lots of ups and downs, and how did eToro handle that whole kind of situation?
So as I said at the beginning, the 2020 COVID, we saw kind of some of our biggest numbers in terms of onboarding users. A lot of it had to do with the volatility. So you had, for example, oil going to below zero for the first time ever. So we had a lot of traders that were wanting to get into the market and get in quickly to kind of ride this volatility up and down. And so we kind of used our ease of access and quick to market product to track those kind of traders. But it was very difficult for us because, as I said, it was a very sensitive time. So on the one hand, people were losing jobs, losing their source of incomes, and we didn't want to, on a marketing perspective, we didn't want to go out there and say, the markets are wild, come make money with us. We were very, very sensitive to what we said and how we said it. The last thing we wanted to do was kind of press that button on users that were really affected by COVID. So we took a perspective of come and learn, come and learn what's going on, use our social elements, speak to people that have experience in what's going on in the market. So we had a ton of influx of users coming in and going to our academy. We have an eToro academy that kind of you learn about, what is a stock to kind of how the S&P 500 works. So we had a lot of people coming to learn, which was great for us. They not necessarily came to deposit money, but they came to just be a part of this, once in a lifetime market effect.
I think that's super important. The brand, at Seedtag, we work with brands, hundreds of brands every day, and we quickly saw which brands, there were some brands that just didn't react at all to COVID, the situation. Yeah. They were just business as usual, doing the same thing. There were some brands that just, were in a little bit of a panic and just withdrew everything, didn't want to run anything. They didn't, really, I don't know whether it's the wrong way to say it, but they didn't really care about, their marketing budgets and how they needed to spend them. But then the brands that I found were the most successful during that period were the ones that had a bit of empathy and that emotional connection. And they weren't so much, like you said, promoting products or trying to bring in additional customers, which could have happened naturally, organically, but not within the creative message or not within the targeting. There was never really a push. So it was more connecting with the person and not just a user or a customer, thinking of them as a person, and highlighting whether it was their service. We're by your side during these difficult times. We're doing, this is what we're doing in that space. And then I suppose the other one, like you said, is more the education. So people have probably a little bit more time on their hands. They're at home. A lot of us had young children at home, and you need to keep them entertained. And there were some brands that, where you could just download a coloring book online for free, print it off, and, it gave you something else. So yeah, I think that emotional connect was super important around COVID. And some brands literally smashed it and did really well, whereas other brands didn't do so well. So yeah, I think that's super important. When it comes back to privacy, then what do you think the future holds, especially for advertising?
So I think we're definitely moving to an environment, a future of the user not giving up his data. I think users are becoming much more aware about how marketers are using their data, how the big five, the Facebooks and the Googles, are actually monetizing their data. So there's a lot of the new generation are coming in saying, wait a minute, if you want my data, so what's in it for me? So there will be a kind of, okay, so I do want this personalization. I do want to be shown relevant ads, but I don't want to, I don't want to know that you're making money off the data that is ultimately mine. So let's kind of share this, somehow. There's a big theme around decentralized social media. So, this has to do with a lot of the blockchain space. So there are companies trying to build places where users can actually monetize their own data. So there's a company called Brave. They have a Brave browser, which is a very interesting, completely different perspective of how to advertise, because they're saying, okay, I'm giving up my data. The advertisers will benefit, but I also want to get something in return. So they're part of the whole revenue model also. And I think that kind of ecosystem sounds to me very interesting. And I think as a user also, something where I think it could go.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think there are a few browsers out there, and again, completely, this is my own opinion, but I don't see any kind of cases where, I've made £100 in a month or something like that. It's more on the smaller scale. But I definitely do think there is there needs to be that trade-off between, giving your data as a user and then getting something back for it. So, that might not just be monetary. It could be other things, access to certain, additional articles that you can read on a big publication, or coupons, or whatever it might be. So I think that's here to stay, but how users will benefit, I think that will be interesting to see how that develops and evolves. So we've got literally just one final question for you today. If you had a superpower in technology, what would it be?
So I'm a huge crypto fanatic. I've been I love the whole blockchain space. So definitely, if I could time travel and go back to when Bitcoin was $1 or even below $1, I would do it, and I would buy as much as I can. But on marketing, to be more serious on a marketing side, just to kind of if I knew what strategy and what messages worked from the get-go, it would be a huge help, instead of kind of wasting time and resources around A/B testing.
Brilliant answer, and definitely around crypto and buying Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies out there. I think if all of us just put some money into it 5-6 years ago, we would all be a lot richer than we are now. But
exactly.
That's hindsight for you, right? Brilliant. Well, that's all we've got time for today. Thanks, Shad, for your time. It's been great speaking to you.
My pleasure. Thank you again for having me.